Hello and welcome to this first video on how to use Streamline. Today we're going to talk about these first two features because these are the features that your team leaders and painters are going to use most frequently. To set the scenario, let's say that you're busy, you're out on a job, and you get a call from someone interested in an estimate. You're going to open up Streamline, click on Estimates, New Estimate, and fill out their information. Now to save time, I'm going to use a former test customer by typing in the first three letters of their name, clicking outside the box, and then selecting one of the options that appear. You'll see that the information auto-fills, and I can then scroll to the bottom, select the date and a time. I can also document how they heard about us, and then insert all the services that they are interested in having done. So let's do cabinets, walls, and trim. And these services are customizable in company settings, but Streamline does come with a preset configuration. We can now hit submit, and we'll see that it says the estimate was created, but it was never sent to the customer, because we have not yet configured our email settings. So let's do as it says and refresh the page, and we'll see that the estimate is now present. When it comes time to actually go out and do the estimate, we can now click, and it provides all the information that we originally had in the estimate, and we can click here to call the customer, and we can click here for a map to the location. We can scroll down and we see all the services that we offer, and again these are customizable in settings. And if we scroll to the next area, we see this section, and this is for each area of the job site. So let's say that we want to start our estimate in the bedroom. We are going to type in the length, width, and height. And when we click the services that they want done in that section, everything will be calculated automatically in the contract based on the pricing structure that you set in company settings. Additionally, if there are any issues that need to be documented, we can pull up the camera and simply point to anything that we need to address, and that image is going to be tied to that section. We can then bring it up to view. We can now add a new section. Let's add a guest bathroom. And in this case, they're not sure. We're gonna add in 6 cabinets. They're not sure if they want this guest bathroom done. And so what we're going to do is click on this Make Optional. And in the contract, it's going to make the entire guest bathroom optional for the customer to select. And I'll show you that here in just a minute. Let's go to the top here, and let's scroll down one more. Let's add in a new section, and it's going to be the hall closet, and it's trim, and we're just going to make sure that we have trim selected on all these. We're going to have to add in some dimensions here. Okay, so we can add as many sections as we want just by clicking here. Now, this is a nice feature here at the bottom. We can choose services to make optional throughout the entire job site. Okay, so for example, We have trim selected here in all the rooms. But let's say that they are not sure that they want to do the trim. So we can make it optional in the contract. And again, I'll show you what that means here in just a minute. Additionally, we can add a discount. Some companies like to offer perhaps a military discount, something like that. And then we click Save, and it's going to tell us the quantity of materials that we're going to need. And again, all this information is configurable in company settings. So some companies, they might require more materials, less materials based on certain aspects. And so they can configure all that in company settings. Now, we can either email the contract to the customer here, or we can pull it up on our phone and have the customer sign it right off of our device. This contract is entirely customizable, but again, Streamline does come with a pre-configured contract for convenience. Now, this scope of work section is where all the contract information appears. So we see that there's the bedroom, guest bath, hall closet. Those are the sections that we had in our estimate. Also, the guest bath, notice that it has this checkbox that the customer can either choose to do or not. Additionally, the trim can be selected and deselected to remove it from the contract. Let's take a look here at the pricing structure as we change these values, just so we can see that it auto updates. Let's go here. And so this makes it extremely convenient for the customer to pick and choose to make sure that they're getting exactly what they want. Let's scroll down to the bottom here and go ahead and have the customer sign. They select a date and submit. So the contract has now been officially signed. We can close out of that. And if I go back to the home page and estimates, we'll see that the estimate no longer appears. If we go into current jobs, we'll now see that Josh Dunseth appears. And so we can click and we see that there's all this information from the original estimate, and all of your team leaders and painters will have access to this page, but only certain information and features based on their permissions. Okay, so we have these change orders that we're going to talk about here in a minute. This section right here, this team leaders, is going to have a list of all your team leaders. And so you can pick and choose which teams are going to have access to this job to go out and complete it. Additionally, all those team leaders and everyone working underneath them is going to have access to clock in and to clock out directly from the job. And so it's extremely convenient for payroll and keeping track of data and staying organized. Scrolling down, we see all the sections of the job that are to be completed. We're working on the bedroom, guest bath, and hall closet. As jobs get completed, we can mark them off here. Additionally, we can take any before and after pictures and have them tied to each room for convenience. Let's go ahead and type in a white mat for the walls and a white gloss for the cabinets. We can scroll down and click on Calculate Totals, and it's going to calculate all the materials that we need to order. And again, all these brands, like I typically use a Regal Select, all these products and quantities are customizable in company settings. And so we can type on here and adjust this however we want, and then click on Place Order, and it's going to provide a list of all of our suppliers. Again, this is set in company settings. And by clicking on one of the green buttons, it's going to email this above information to that supplier. And then we can follow up with a quick call. So this makes it extremely simple and efficient to order materials, know what you need, keep track of your team. We can now move on to payments. Now there are three options. You can pay by Square, by check, or cash. Let's do a by check example. We can type in a check number, an amount, and then when we hit submit, it's just going to require that we type in a quick little password just to prevent pocket dials. And then we'll see that a receipt was sent to the customer for the amount of $10. And if we close and then open again, we'll see the payment history. Additionally, any expenses for the job are posted under expenses. And we'll see that here in this first table, it gives the hours for each employee. It gives their estimated pay. And it tells us whether or not they're logged in. So our team leaders can look at this and say, okay, John forgot to log in. Let's go tell him and make sure that he does. Or at the end of the day, John forgot to log out. Let's call him and make sure he signs out. Right here we can add any expenses. So we have a reference number for perhaps receipt numbers, and then type in the total, the date, and the type. So whether it's for payroll, materials, fuel, permits, etc. And then of course we save it, and all that information will then be tied to the job. And so in our reports section, we can start building data that tells us what percentage of material of our profit is going into materials, payroll, etc., and start keeping our data organized. And then of course we can mark the job as complete. And once we mark the job as complete, it will no longer show up in current estimates or in current jobs. That way it's not always in the way. Okay, let's scroll up here to change order. Now we can click and view the original estimate. We can view any of the images that were taken just for documentation, etc. Additionally, provided that the user has the correct permissions, they can create a change order. Again, we have these little passwords to prevent pocket dials. And we click on the View Change Order, and it brings up a copy of the original estimate. So we can change this without changing the original estimate. Okay, so let's go in here and we're going to add another section. So we've been on the job, the team leader's been on the job for a while, and the customer wants another room completed. Let's do the kitchen, and we're going to add in 34 cabinets. Now, when we click Save, it doesn't change the job. So everything in the job remains the same. Let's go back here. And we'll see that nothing has been changed in the job. And that's because the customer hasn't signed the change order yet. So we're going to go to change order 1. And we added the kitchen, 34 cabinets. And now we're either going to email it to the customer, or we're going to open it up and allow them to sign it on the spot. We're going to scroll down. They're going to sign it. Okay, so now let's go back, refresh the page. And so now that it has been signed, we can see that the kitchen has been added. So Streamline is designed to be exactly what you need to manage a painting business as efficiently as possible. We can see that there's going to be some initial setup on the company settings side, but there is almost no preparation or training that is necessary for your team leaders and painters to begin using Streamline. So it's a very simple and efficient system to start implementing right away. And so thank you, and I look forward to the next video.